everybody? Drew Richardson here with ASR Miniature Art for another GT event convention review. I just got back from BugEater GT 2024, which is held in Omaha, Nebraska at, I believe it's Millard West High School. The main event organizer there is Tim Royers, who's a pretty notable Warhammer guy and also just a really great dude all around, helps run events up there. And he does this BugEater event as a charity for kiddos at that high school every year. So just like usual, we're going to go over the review, try to give a fair and honest, unbiased discussion of what the event was like, and then give you some information on if you would want to go to the event yourself. So what is BugEater? BugEater is a multiple GT/convention style event. I don't want to say it's a full-on convention. I mean, it might be, but that might be what they define it as. But it doesn't have like paint classes or a bunch of vendors, or it's more just a bunch of games that have GTs all in one building, so and in one place. There is one vendor, Pirate Pat, who does a bunch of stuff. He brings up in a trailer, sets up a table, and has a bunch of really awesome product. He's kind of always been there. Really cool guy. So shout out to him. That's really the only vendor though. Outside of that, everything is just multiple games running a GT. So this year there was Marvel Crisis Protocol, Warhammer 40,000, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and then the game I played, Kings of War. I don't know the body count for all of those. I know Age of Sigmar and Kings of War both had 32 players, which is awesome. That's pretty big. That's a good size. I'd say that's probably like the average Kings of War size, a good number for a 2-day GT event. That was the event I participated in, though, was the Kings of War tournament. And it's also really cool because the kiddos that are going to school at the venue, because it's like we're playing on a basketball court, which is, by the way, way better than I think people give it credit for. Tons of space, lots of air in the room. You can fit a ton of people in a room. But the kiddos help run the event. They set up tables, they sell candy and stuff like that, and they're helping us, as we run the event, which I think is really cool. So they're actually like earning the fundraiser as well. But I love charity style events where I can go play in my tournament, have a fun time, and then also give back to a community or a good cause. So that's the premise of BugEater, is that it's just a multi-GT event all in one place, which is basically a convention, but it's missing out on the like vendors and the hobby side of stuff. So now that's not to say though that they don't have some hobby stuff to participate in as far as like competitions. So I'll kind of get into that into a second. But I also want to kind of go over who all went with me from the Oklahoma area. So we typically have, the OK Crew, which is our guys in Oklahoma City, and then there's the Sons of Drew team, which are the guys up here in Edmond, Oklahoma. And typically we all kind of get together and go to events. And BugEater's a little far away than normal. Like normally we go to Dallas or, Adepticon's kind of an exception too. But for just a standard 2-day GT, BugEater's like 7 hours away with no stops, which is quite a bit of a drive, but it's totally worth it. It's my favorite GT, I think, for sure, out of all the Kings events I attend. So because of that, though, and also the closeness it had, like in time-wise with Lone Wolf was just a month and a half ago or so. Not a lot of our Sons of Drew could make it, or our OK Crew. But we did end up having 4 of us. There was Bill and Tucker from the OK Crew, and then Aaron and I from Sons of Drew that made it up, and we kind of formed one team so we could help points and stuff like that. So we were the Oklahoma guys. So that's who all went. I rode with Aaron, and him and I drove 7 hours north to Nebraska, and then Bill and Tucker rode together, and then we stayed at a nice Fairfield Inn and had a nice time at the hotel, and we had some fun playing games. So I was talking about the hobby side of it, the like paint. There's a painting competition at the event, and it's event-wide. It's not just yours. Like now, each game does have its own painting comp, but there is a Golden Gobbo painting competition for the whole event for people to enter minis in and try to win. And I participated in it every year. It's a wonderful little event. I love the trophies that the event does for all the games and the Golden Gobbo. They do these really cool plaques they're really sleek. They look really good, and they have a nice professional look to them. It's a lot like actually what you would see at a school for somebody who won an award. It's a plaque with a nice metal frame and some inscriptions on it or whatever. It actually is. I didn't ever think about that till now, but it is something you would see like a placard hanging up on a wall at a school. But I really like it. I think it's slick and it's nice and it's easier to kind of put up on your wall and show off than unlike a trophy. So like a standard like trophy you would you have to set somewhere. But I really like that. They just look really slick and they're nice. So um, I'll talk about the Golden Gobbo first, and then I'll get into my Kings of War experience and kind of what that looked like and how I did, and then overall what's going on. So the Golden Gobbo, um, again, it's a painting competition for all the games. It has 3 primary categories: historical, because usually there's a pretty big bolt action community that shows up and plays, but they were not there this year, which is kind of strange. So the historical side did not have a very good showing. I think there's only like a couple entries, which is a little odd. And I'm going to try to put photos up just like we usually do of all the pictures of the event and who went with me and everything like that, and also my entries. But I want to make sure I point out that the entries, the pictures I took, were when I put my entries in, and I went in pretty early to put my entries in. There was probably 3 times that many number of entries than what I show in the photos when I went to pick up my models. It felt like one of the larger Golden Gobbo competitions, which was cool. I love seeing that. I love a good competition. But the 3 primary categories again were historical, sci-fi, and fantasy, and then they had like monster, unit, and hero in each of those. So I participated in the sci-fi and the fantasy categories, and in the sci-fi section, I put an Imperial Knight I painted up in the vehicle monster, and then I put in a really fun Judgment Eternal Champions mini, which is a new game I've been loving and enjoying, called Lug Drug. He's this orc with like a steam-powered hammer and shield, and he has like a motor on his back. It's pretty funny, but he's sweet mini, and I loved working on him. And then I also put in a Space Marine. You guys have probably seen the Space Marine Terminator captain I've done, but I looked and I was like, oh, I actually finished him after Golden Gobbo last year. So he hadn't had a chance to compete yet, so I went ahead and put him in there. And the way it works is it's pretty easy to enter. You can enter as many models into a category as you want. It's the first one's free because you just get one with your entry to the GT of whichever GT you're participating in, and then it's $5 for each entry after. Just another way to do fundraising, which is really cool. And I think they want to say, I don't want to skip too far ahead, but they've raised like $5,500 for the kids, which that's profit. That's after the cost of the venue expenses and the prize support and the trophies. That's $5,500 profit, which for the drama and debate club there, I think they do trips and stuff. That's a lot of cash. So I'm really excited to hear that. So with that being said, I also entered into the fantasy category, and I did my Gimli that I painted up for Golden Demon, a couple other Judgment characters, which was Drelgoth, Zonia, and maybe that was it. Yeah, I only did 3. I did 3 and 3. I did 3 sci-fi, 3 fantasy. Yeah, I had 6 entries. So that's what I entered, and I ended up actually winning Best in Show with my Gimli mini, which was really cool. I want to say I won Best in Show last year, or I think they split it up. They had Best in Show per category last year, but I won the fantasy genre Best in Show last year. But this one just says Best in Show period, so I'm assuming that means out of everything, which is really cool. I'm really proud of that. And that Gimli model, I did a ton of work on him, like we talked about in the Adepticon review. I spent a lot of time on him, and I got a notable entry at Adepticon, which is a step further than I got last year. So, and they were talking about how much they loved the Gimli. They thought it had a lot of cool detail. It looked really nice. And the thing with that as well, that was kind of cool, was I got to kind of a sneak peek. I stumbled into the final judging. I was going to pick up my minis because I was at the time they said, hey, come pick your minis up here. And I went to go pick it up, and my Drelgoth was actually what it looked like to be in the top 4. And actually, they were deciding Best in Show over my 2 minis. So that's really cool because I've been kind of a little self-conscious of my Judgment minis because they're game pieces, but they're beautiful game pieces, and I try to put a lot of love into them, but also I have to get them done because I need to play with them. So it's cool to hear that, like, oh, okay, cool. The Gimli, which had more work into it and was the better mini, won, but my other stuff didn't get just pushed aside. So it's a thin line to do, like, competition painting and competition, like, army painting are very different things, and it's cool to see that line is getting a little blend for me because that means overall quality is just higher. And that's why I put my Imperial Knight in as well. As I think I put a lot of work into my Imperial Knight the week before the event, and I wanted to show him off and see how well he did because he's going to be part of a bigger project that I'm going to do for the end of the year. So, anyways, so Golden Gobbo, always love it. As my buddy Travis says, we were bringing home the hardware. So I got a cool gift coupon to a store, and I got an awesome plaque that says I'm a badass. So always love to do that. Um, but that was the hobby stuff. So now I want to get into the Kings of War event. So first of all, right out the gate, big shout out to the Outlanders Club who puts on the Kings of War GT at BugEater every year. And primarily, and I apologize guys if I can't recall, but I know Travis, Tim, Billy Henninger, Adam Ballard, and Tim Lonis are the like head TOs. Tim does a lot of the paperwork and organization, and he also, with War Chest Creations, provides a lot of prize support to the event. Travis and Adam are like the primary TOs, like actually going and making rules calls, and then Billy also is a TO who plays Ringer, and if everybody's able to make it, he also just participates. But he also, I got to give Billy the biggest props here. He does a huge barbecue at his house Saturday night of the event. Cooks a ton of food, feeds everybody, and it's just fantastic. Absolutely love it, and he hosts it all. It's all in his backyard. So he's got 30 people eating food in his backyard. So big shout out to Billy for that. I also want to give a shout out to Russ and Grant. Don't cannot remember their last names for some reason, but they know who they are. Um, Russ is like the founder of the Outlanders, and he's always just the coolest guy ever. He's like a grandpa to me, and I love that. And then Grant is his son, who's like just a really awesome painter and a great hobbyist, and also just a fantastic friend. I'm really good friends with all these guys. It's almost emotional to just talk about how much I love these guys and how much they've become a family to me. I go to this event every year because BugEater is like a family reunion. We go and we play some games and we drink and have fun, but then we have a big barbecue and we just hang out in the backyard and just catch up on the year and have fun and just love each other, man. And I absolutely love it. I will do my best to never miss this event. Even if I'm not playing Kings of War, I might go and just play Kings of War at that tournament this year because I want to see those people. Or if there's another game I'm playing that's also at the same GT, I'll go participate in that game, but then hang out with the Kings of War guys. So I just love them so much. And if you guys ever hear this, like, you mean a lot to me. And this event means a lot to, I think, the community, and we love you for it. So big shout out to you guys right out the gate. But let's talk about just a couple things that makes the BugEater GT for Kings of War stand out on its own. And also, before I forget it, random thought here. This is still going to be a unbiased review, I promise. Despite how much I love these guys, and also Tim Royers, who puts on the event. I love all those guys. They're cool. I still want to be fair and make sure you guys kind of understand what's going on. So, and we'll kind of do a recap and like a grade at the end of the video when we get done talking about the games. So, what makes the BugEater GT stand out for Kings of War is really two things. One is the barbecue. The barbecue is part of the event. It's not a private invite. It's a, hey, if you're signed up for the GT, you are invited to come have a good time and drink and eat food and have fun. And it's very welcoming. It's so cool. And I think, a lot of events have something like this, but that's their version of it. Like, I know Lady of the Lake does a big camp out and a live music kind of festival thing where we're all staying at Chris Crafter's yard, sleeping and having a good time and listening to music and stuff, camping. Lone Wolf does just like all night gaming and drinking and like a drinking contest. BugEater's big thing, like their social event, is the barbecue, and it's really good food, and it's just a great time. They get a little kiddie pool, put it out in the middle of the yard with a ton of ice and water, and just like people are just dumping alcohol bottles and stuff in there to let them chill, and then anybody can go grab whatever they want. It's really cool. because you also get an opportunity to try other drinks from other areas. And like, all right, I haven't been to Colorado, so what's this really cool beer they brought? And so it's a lot of fun. The other thing that makes BugEater unique is kind of like how Lone Wolf has special missions where it's like a book mission with a twist. The BugEater GT does deployment with a twist. They use some of that old school Warhammer Fantasy Battle deployments, as well as a lot of that's been adopted into Age of Sigmar and 40k as well. But it's like we're going to deploy diagonally. We're going to deploy hammer and anvil. We're going to deploy. I think that's the only one. But they mix it up. They put different deployments in there, and so it's not so overbearing that you don't understand what's going on, but it's still enough to kind of make things interesting. And they also have their own event mini. They change theirs pretty much every year. Like Lone Wolf does the Lone Wolf Lone Ranger, and they tweak it, but it's always a Lone Wolf and a Lone Ranger. BugEater changes theirs around. It's not always the same thing. So this year they did familiars. Each army got to bring 2 familiars, and that familiar was just a token that went onto a unit, and it gave that unit a special ability. I don't remember what they all were, but I'll tell you the 2 I picked were +1 cast dice and inspiring. So you could just give a unit inspiring, and you could change which unit had it every game. You had to keep the same 2 familiars for the whole tournament, but you could change who got the familiar each game. Um, and the familiar did have a chance to die. Like every time you used it, you had to roll, and on a 1 it died. And at the end of the game, you got points if your opponent's familiars died. You'd get up to 2 extra points, 1 for each familiar, for killing them, or the unit that had them. So that's the unique stuff that happened for them, and it was awesome. I really liked this one this year. The downside to it was I didn't really get to have a cool mini that I added to my army. Like I did do little familiars. Like I painted a snake and a lizard for I brought my Empire Dust with my Cult of the Lizard God theme, and I used those. It's not as cool, I think, as an actual full-on event mini, but it was very smooth gameplay. So you lost a little hobby for, I would say, a better game experience. So that's kind of you have to decide what you like more. So with that, that's kind of the stuff that made BugEater unique. Again, I brought my Empire Dust list, which was the 2 Spearmen regiments, the 2 Mummy regiments, the Skeleton Warrior Horde, the 2 Enslaved Guardian hordes. This time I brought the Brutal item and the J-Boots, the Strider item. And then I brought the Soul Snare, Shobik, Sebek Rai, and 2 Scavengers. But instead of having a Desert Swarm and an Undead Worm, I cut them both and I put in just a Bone Giant. Bone Giant, way better than the Undead Worm, in my opinion, for my list. It was a lot better. And I gave it the Inspiring item, so it was inspired most of the time, which was very useful. And then I gave the Soul Snare the extra cast dice, so I had Drain Life 10, which was pretty dang good. So that's what I brought. Let's kind of go over each of the games, and I'm not really going to give you a big talk about each game because I didn't really take notes or anything like that, and I did not do very well this weekend. So, but I'll give you kind of a rough idea of what happened. So, game 1, I played against Michael Sigler out of Kansas City, which, spoiler, he won the whole event, which is really cool. Good job to Michael. Him and I started playing the game around the same time, and he's just grown so much as a player, and I'm excited to see him win a GT. So that's really cool. And it also makes me feel bad because I lost to it. I mean, it makes me feel good because I lost to him round 1. So he brought Ratkin, and we played Dominate, and it was actually a pretty close game. I almost ended up winning it if he had a shock troop horde, and I think it was 17 wounds left at the very end of the game, and I could not get that last bit of wounds into it. And so that 4-point unit strength swung it for him, and he ended up winning the game. But it was very close. If I could have killed that horde, I would have ended up winning the game. Because he only had a couple of Broodmothers and like a Claw Shot unit and Tangle left, and then the horde. And then I had a bunch of like Monolith, like a regiment of dudes, and like Shobik. And I needed to kill that horde to make the difference. So, but hey, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So that was game 1. Game 2, I played against Eric, and I'm going to apologize in advance, guys. I don't remember everybody's names, the full names, anyways. But Eric and I played Push. He was playing Dwarves, And this is one of the ones where they changed the deployment up. So dominate was a standard deployment. Push, we played on the long ends of the table, commonly known as hammer and anvil. And we both played dwarves and EOD with push, which some very slow armies trying to get across the table, and it was pretty bad. It was slow. He ended up getting the win. I lost some key pieces early on that I did not expect to lose, and he ended up basically just being able to collapse in around me and just destroy me. I had no power to stop him. So he ended up getting it. Then after that, I played on the end of day one. I played against Chris. I think it's Chris Bellows. I think, and he played Force of the Abyss. And we were playing Stockpile, which is one of the new missions that came out last year, where you have like 3 stacks of tokens in the middle, and you can take it each turn. You can take a token off the stack. I ended up actually tabling him and winning the mission. It probably was the best performance I had with my Bone Giant. He got into a nook, killed a unit, and then he was out of line of sight of Chris's whole army. And then from there, I was able to just do crazy surge shenanigans and kill so much stuff. And there was one point where in the middle where he had a Moloch horde that if it would have just rolled like average and his nerve dice would have just played along, he would have killed an enslaved guardian horde and swung the game back into his favor. And it didn't happen. And so at that point, he had a horde of Molochs just sitting in the board, in the middle of the board, with everything looking at him, and that was just the end of the game from there. So just some unfortunate dice. And it sounds like from what we were talking about, he had a pretty rough dice weekend as it was. So hope things turn around for the next one. Then that was the end of day one. So I was 1-2 going into the next day. And then from there, I played against, in game 4, I played against Grant, Russ's kid. Russ's son. Grant is like 40, I think. I don't know if he's not 40. Sorry, Grant. But he's older than me. So, anyways, love Grant to death. One of my favorite games of the weekend. I had an absolute blast playing against him. And, to be honest, like, he played Ogres, and Ogres is a horrible matchup, I feel like, for me. I have a horrible record, personally, against Ogres. I think I've beat them once at a GT, and I just lose to them. They're so hard. I can't figure out how to beat them, and they're so hard to deal with. And this was no different. But it was really fun, really chill, and he had a beautiful army. It was cool because a lot of people came to watch us play, and it was like they're like, this is the most beautiful game. Like, I'm not trying to sound boastful, but I would say him and I probably had the best looking armies there. And he ended up actually winning Best Painted, which much deserved. He had a really awesome Pirate Ogre army with a lot of cool water effects and a really great model selection, and he just took that and then amplified it with his paint. So good job, man. It was a sweet looking army. So that was game 4, and Grant got it. We played Control, and this one had the diagonal deployment. So it was Control with diagonal, and the difference is normally Control is the 3 squares on each half table, and the middle one across from you is the 2-pointer. This back corner that was furthest into your deployment zone was the 2-pointer. So it still forced us to cross into each other. It was a super close game. We almost tied. He got it. He shot a scavenger unit off the board in one turn with like the very last turn, and it was what caused me to not tie. So, and I should have been smarter about it. I should have got that unit out of the way, but shame on me. So he ended up winning that one, and then my last game, funny enough, all the Okies played each other last round. Tucker played Aaron, and I played Bill. Bill brought Northern Alliance, and we were playing Invade. So this game was probably my favorite game of the whole weekend. I had a fantastic time with Chris, fantastic time with Grant, but Bill and I were laughing the entire time. So turn 1, I go first, and I send a scavenger unit, or it was turn 2. As the start of turn 2, moved up, he moved up, and then turn 2 sent a scavenger unit right into a troll horde, ice troll horde, and boxcard wavered them and just slowed his whole line down. But worse from there, he had an elf berserker regiment or troop flank the birds and double ones them. He proceeded to do that for the next 3 turns. So those elf berserkers didn't do anything. The trolls ended up actually withdrawing and sidestepping like 2 turns to then get around the birds. The birds weren't able to do anything back, but they were just sitting there being like, okay, well, you have to deal with me. And then he also ended up double winning my skeleton warrior horde, and it was bad. He ended up actually still winning the game despite that, which just goes to show that double ones don't determine games, tactics do. It was a very close game. I had an opportunity to win it, but he ran a hero in front of my enslaved guardian horde that had mighty, and I could not kill the hero, and they couldn't get across the line. So, and he had a monster. He had a troll horde, and those berserkers ended up finally making it across the line. So, and I only had Shobik. So it was 1-4, I think is what it was. I might be missing one other thing, but it was roughly around that. I only had one unit get over. So, anyways, it was a really good game though. We had a lot of fun. We were laughing the whole time. Every time he doubled ones, we just kind of looked at each other in just disbelief. He was starting to sort his dice out. He's like, anything that rolls a one is going in a pile over here. So it was just a really good time. All in all, I mean, I had like a pretty good time at the event. The really the only like downsides were, so this year the kids didn't provide a lunch option, which was a little annoying. Normally there's an option for they cater in lunch and then we can buy it. And then also that there was also no kids with the trolleys running around. They usually have a trolley with water, sodas, energy drinks that we can buy. So those two things weren't there. And then Adam, and this is really not anything he can control, but he had a wedding that weekend, so we didn't get to see Adam until like day 2, and that's I love seeing my guys. You know, I want to see them as soon as I can, and so those are really the only downers. And I didn't get to drink or anything either because I'm still doing my 75 hard challenge I talked about during Adepticon, or Lone Wolf, I mean. But I still had a just fantastic time. And talking to the guys who went with me, they loved it. They want to keep doing this event. I will always keep doing this event. It's such a good time. Winning Golden Gobbo was such an awesome achievement. Little bummed out that my EOD have not been doing as well as I'd like on soft scores in the last 2 tournaments. I'm pretty much done with them at this point. I'm not winning games with them, and I'm not winning soft score stuff with them either. And I blame kind of the Mantic models for that, to be honest with you. Like, I didn't really have my heart into it, so I'm not going to probably do another 90% Mantic army for a while. I'll just do what I did before, which was if Mantic had a cool model for a unit I wanted to play with, I'd use it. If not, I'd find something I liked. That's probably what I'll go back to, but I'm not doing very well with them competitively, and I'm not doing very well with them soft score wise. I think I've won 3 games out of 3 GTs, and even if I improved my play, the soft score stuff matters to me a lot, and I don't want to keep playing with an army that I don't think that can do well on paint. So I'm gonna probably start a new project, looking at like ogres or Twilightkin, or Night Stalkers, one of those two. I kind of have an evil Fae idea in mind that I'm looking at, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to go from there with it. But all in all, fantastic time. One of my favorite events of the year, and I'm just happy that I got to go. So nothing else really to add to that, guys. I don't think I'm missing anything. Just looking at my little itinerary here. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, just let me know and comment below.